Hi, I'm Kirsten with Four Paws Veterinary Wellness, and today we're going to demonstrate how to set up and administer your cat or your dog some sub-Q fluids. So here we have our supplies. We have a needle, which is an 18 gauge needle, and that may vary depending on what you and your veterinarian have discussed. This is a bag of Plasmolite. It's 1,000 mils or 1 liter of Plasmolite, and the type of fluids will vary depending on what your veterinarian has prescribed. And this is our IV drip set. You can see that here. So the first thing for today is we're going to take all of these parts and put them together for our setup. Okay, the first thing you want to do is you want to remove your fluid bag from the packaging. And on the fluid bag there will be an area here that's pre-cut for you to tear open the packaging. So we're just going to hold on to that and put this open. Take your fluid bag out and then dispose of this piece. Next, we're going to remove our IV drip set from the packaging, and it is perforated on the top of this particular bag. We're going to pull that open and pull this out. Set that aside for disposal or recycling. So to put these two things together, we need to do a couple things here. We're going to bring these down, and we're going to pull this is a blue tab out of here, and yours may look different. It might be white, and this is also going to be disposed of. Now, inside of this is the sterile part that you will be placing this into with a sharp point that will pierce this. At this point, it's still sealed. So to use the IV drip set, the first thing we want to do is we want to close off the clamp. The clamp here is the way that you turn the fluids on and off. So there's a roller, and we're going to roll the roller all the way down, and that will make this clamped. You can't move this around, so this will be pinched off. You're then going to take the cap off of this part here, and you're going to end it into the fluid bag. And I like to hold on to the thicker part, so that way you don't accidentally re-pierce the part here that you definitely don't want to do that. So we're going to insert and sort of twist to pierce through there, and that's pierced. So now my fluid line is inside my fluid bag. Then I'm going to hold up my fluid bag, and we're going to prime the fluid line. So the first thing we want to do that is we're going to give this port a pinch, and you will see that the fluids are running into the port. And then we're going to prime fluids into the line so that we're not injecting air into our pet by opening up the fluid line, and we're going to roll the roller all the way up, and you can see how the fluid is pouring inside and the fluids are going in the line, and then when it reaches the end we're going to roll down and turn it off. So now I have fluid all the way in my fluid line here. So I do need to put a needle on the end of this fluid line, so I'm going to take the lure lock part of this and just bring it down so that I can access the tip. I'm going to remove the cap from the tip and keep this end sterile. Then I'm going to open my needle. This one is sealed in plastic, and you may have one that is in paper that looks similar to this, where you're going to just peel the paper back to access your needle. Today's demonstration we're using this plastic sealed one. So I want to hold on to this, twist it to break the seal. This is trash, and the end is going to go inside your needle and just give it a push. Now your needle is attached to your line, and to access your needle you're going to just pull straight the cap. I'm going to recap that for now by pushing in. So that concludes our setup of our fluid bag with our fluid line and our needle. Now before we want to administer this bag or the sub-Q fluids to our pet, we want to ensure that the fluids are somewhat warmed. The fluids in the bag right now are cold, and so I want to warm them before I give them to my pet, who for this purpose is going to be my cat George, so that it doesn't sting him and that the whole process goes much smoother. So in order to do that, I have a bowl here of warm water, actually hot water, that I'm going to soak the fluids in this way. I'm going to just set them in the bag, and I'm going to leave them in there for a few minutes. checking the water to make sure that it's still warm. And then after approximately 2 to 3 minutes, we're gonna pull the bag out and give it a shake, and then check the temperature on our arm to make sure it's not too hot. If you did get it too hot, you can leave it out for approximately 15 minutes to half an hour to cool back off. Or you can set it in the refrigerator for just a few minutes. We want this to be approximately room temperature so that it's not as irritating to our pet. So I'm going to just give a demonstration on how to tell where your fluids are flowing to on the bag here. We want to hold this or hang this. If you're using 2 people, 1 person can hold the bag. I do recommend getting an over-the-door hook, or you can take a wire coat hanger and bend that to make an over-the-door hook, because the whole fluid setup is going to work by gravity. So depending on where you want to have your pet when you're giving the fluids is going to depend on how high you're going to be hanging your fluids. So we're from the very beginning of the bag to, on this particular bag, to the 1 is going to be 100 milliliters. And each of these lines from the 1 to the 2 is 100 milliliters or 100 cc's. From the 2 to the 3 is again 100, and so on and so forth. If your veterinarian has prescribed you to give less than 100 or more than 100, say 150, we would be going to the 1 and then to in between these 2 lines, in between this line and this line, which would be 50 milliliters. This is an approximation. It is not a definite, but that's okay. Okay, for today's demonstration, we have one of my cats, George. George has kidney disease and he does get sub-Q fluids, so we're going to be using him for our demonstration. So I have over here the bench where I'm going to give George's fluids, a couple of kitty treats for George to distract him, and then our fluids are hung up high, so that way, because it works by gravity, we want to have it high enough that the fluids will flow into George with no problem. I'm going to have George here, who just finished his cat treats. I'm going to take the cap off of the needle and set the cap aside. Now this may take 2 people to do this at first, and then you may or may not, depending on your cat or your dog, be able to do this by yourself. George is pretty used to it, so we're going to go ahead and do it by myself. I have the needle in my hand here, and because it is a larger needle, I want to have the bevel of the needle, which is the open part of the needle, facing up. And this will allow the needle to go through his skin smoothly. Then I'm going to tent George's skin with 3 fingers. I'm going to take these 3 fingers and I'm going to pinch up on his skin and pull at the same time, creating a tent where I'm going to insert the needle at a 45-degree angle under his skin gently, and you will feel a popping sensation there under his skin. Then I'm going to use the roller. I'm going to roll it all the way up so that it's open and the fluid is able to flow into him. And because it's been pinched, you might need to come and unpinch that there. Now you can see my fluids here are dripping in fairly quickly into George, and George is going to get 100. So it's going to go from 750 to 850, and then we're going to stop. So we're just going to sit patiently here with George, give him lots of love and some kitty treats, more kitty treats, and watching our fluids flowing in. Now, if you notice that your fluids stop in, you may want to readjust your needle by moving it in a different direction and making sure that it is under his skin. If you notice fluids squirting out the other side, that means that you poked through both sides of the skin, and you just want to back the needle up very gently so that it's no longer flowing out and that it is under his skin. Okay, so he's now done with that amount of fluids. I'm going to roll the roller all the way down so that the fluid is not flowing anymore and it's stopped. I'm going to pull the needle out from his skin and just put a little bit of pressure where the needle was under his skin so he doesn't lose the fluids from there, because the needle is a little bit larger. Give him more loving so that he doesn't think it was such a terrible thing, and then George can go on his way. I'm going to go ahead then and recap the needle, and then we're done. So what I would do for storage purposes is I would roll this up and go ahead and store it with the bag of fluids, and you can either store that out of sight or leave it hanging on the wall or remove it and lay it down. And this concludes our Subkey fluid demonstration.